Well, hey guys, welcome and thanks so much for tuning in to this edition of Free Thinking with Montel. And I'm going to call this a special edition of Free Thinking with Montel because, you got me on a day that's a tough one, but it's almost a blessing that I have the guest that I'm going to have on today with me today because it's so perfect for today and why. Okay, let me explain why. About a week ago, I and my wife got back from a trip to California, and then she I think I've shared this with you guys before that my wife Tara is a flight attendant, and so she had to work last Thursday or last Wednesday, Thursday, and I happened to be in studio all day on Thursday, and so on those occasions when one of us is not here with our pet and our baby, Mr. Max, we normally send him to a sitter, and he sits with the sitter during the day. And then as soon as either one of us gets home, we get him back immediately. And last week was no different. He went to the sitter, and right before he went to the sitter, we had just come back from California on Monday, and Monday night, Tuesday, he was perfectly fine. Wednesday, he went to the sitter in early morning or midday and was there for Wednesday and Thursday while I was in the studio, and TT was gone, but she got back Thursday morning. And he was perfectly fine on Monday night and Tuesday. And he has been, we understand him. Max is 15 years old. So he's getting up there in age a little bit. And, but we've been so blessed having him for his whole 15 years. And he literally is, and I know a lot of people will say the same thing, their pets are part of the family. He has been a part of the family. He's like no different than me than any one of my other children. Um, he's been with us everywhere we've gone in the last 15 years, with exception of maybe a few places. He barely spends time with the sitter. If we travel, we put him on a plane. He doesn't go underneath the plane. He stays in the plane with us. He has been the perfect traveler since he was 8 weeks old. He was the ring bearer at our marriage. He at our wedding. He has been with us every step. When I got sick a few years ago, I mean, he literally, we couldn't bring him in the hospital, but he was right there in the hotel while my wife slept with me in the hospital for almost 30 days. Max was there, and I would hear about Max each day, so he was doing good. Um, and in the last couple of years, he's had a couple of little issues. He had a seizure issue about I don't know 3 to 5 months ago. Um, but that cleared up and he seemed to be fine. And in the last couple of weeks, he's been fine. And so when he came back on the sitter on Friday, or I'm sorry, Thursday, something was off. He just wasn't right. And of course, the two of us wrestle with, I wonder if he ate something bad at the sitters, or whether if, while at the sitter, he was with another doggy. And, could he have possibly gotten COVID from another dog? And what I mean by he just wasn't right, he was like, just first off, he was not acting like himself at all. He was extremely lethargic, um, seemed to have a little bit more, oh, not, seemed to have a little bit of a wheeze. And we've kind of known, and I call it a wheeze, but it's like a snore. I can't describe it exactly. But, when he exhaled, it was noticeable noise that he was making. And we know because he's a small breed dog that they have something that's called collapsing trachea as they get older. And so we thought maybe there might be something going on there. So let's get him to the vet. Got him to the vet, and then we got to the vet and Animal Hospital. They kind of did a full exam on him, though they didn't do blood work and they didn't do an X-ray. They at that time on Friday determined that he had some pain in his upper shoulder and his arm, and also something going on in his lower back and some pain there. We thought maybe it's just arthritis, and we knew that he had some issues with his shoulder before, so it was just maybe an exacerbation of that. They put him on some, anti-inflammatory, and we're going to give him some like a steroid um, to start him on to see if they could clear that up. And then literally from Friday night on, he's gotten worse every night. So, Tara took him back in again, and he went in to see the doctor, and we decided that we definitely wanted to have blood work done and an X-ray done. Did that, and the X-ray came back with some concern. The vet who looked at him there wanted to wait to get a radiologist to do, you know, a thorough look at the X-ray, but she initially said that she discovered a mass, and that mass was initially diagnosed as being on his liver, but she wanted to have a radiologist look at the X-rays to make sure, which was then done and confirmed that it wasn't really his liver as much as that it had literally is a mass that kind of basically has consumed his kidney, and it seems to have metastasized to his liver and his um, sorry, um, another area, and um, it was causing some fluid in his abdomen and some fluid in his outside of his heart. It seems to be manifesting as you know um, a little heart failure, and um, she gave him some more medication, and he has literally gone downhill so rapidly. It's been crazy. Each night he's had a very difficult night sleeping. As a matter of fact, he didn't sleep at all last night. The night before, he was barely sleeping. Sleep for like 10 minutes, get up, 15 minutes, get up. But last night he wasn't having it. And his breathing is very labored. And, you know, um, we know he's not doing well at all. And he looks at us with these eyes that kind of you know and we're talking to him all the time, but he's looking back at us with eyes like, I love you, but I'm not. I ain't well. I mean, he takes a step, stops, two through steps, stops. So today, that's why I say today is a tough day, because as caregivers for him, we have to make a decision, not for us but for him. I mean, I would love to try to go through the gamut. First off, he's too old to be operated on, and the vet said that they would not recommend that at all. And so, what are we doing? Well, are we just trying to keep him around for us, or are we being the caregivers that we should be, and that is concerned about his well-being and helping him with his journey? I mean, first off, we've gotten 15 unbelievably beautiful years with him, of us loving him and him loving us back, and being a happy dog, being able to go everywhere in the world, and we've kept him on a really good diet, and we've helped him with his health as much as we possibly can. But now we're at a point where we both made the decision last night that and the doctor had offered up the opportunity, said to us, that, we think that, you don't want to keep them around too long because, and a friend of ours had said to Tara, it's better to be a day too early than a day too late. And I agree with that 100%. Our vet then confirmed and said it's better to be a week too early than a day too late, because at that point in time, all he's going to do is suffer. And we don't need him to suffer. I mean, I'm looking at, he just came in the room right now. He walked in here, and he's standing still, and he likes to sit here with me when I do my podcast, and he's back in here now because he knows I'm doing a podcast. I'm sure he knows that, because he knows when Daddy's sitting in the corner with this little thing in front of him, that's what he's doing. And it breaks my heart, because he just it's not him. It's him, but I mean, he's just so fragile. You can see that he's having a real hard time breathing. Of course, some things have changed in his. He's not going to the bathroom the right way right now, and um, he's hurting. And, so today it's really interesting. Last week we had an interview scheduled with our guest that we have today. Um, and unfortunately we had some internet issues. And so we had to cancel it. And then it just happens to be that we were able to reschedule her for today and their internet's working. So, this is as much for me as it is for you and for all of us for free thinking, because I think she's the perfect guest for me today. And today's guest is a certified compassion fatigue specialist through the Green Cross Academy of Traumatology, a health and wellness coach, corporate wellness specialist, and a certified life coach. She's a graduate of the State University of New York, Oswego, and has over 25 years of experience within leading organizations, including Nestle, Purina, Bayer Animal Health, and IDEXX Laboratories. She's the founder of Rekindle LLC and the host of the weekly Rekindling podcast. She develops and executes training and conducts workshops and offers one-on-one coaching with professionals in veterinary medicine, animal welfare, biotech and biomedical research, animal law enforcement, zoo, aquarium, wildlife rehabilitation, and animal rights and animal conservation. Please welcome to the show, Julie Squires. Thank you so much, Julie, for being part of the show today.
Well, it is really my honor to be here today, and you know what? I believe that this wasn't by accident that what happened last week happened, and here we are today. So I'm honored to be with you at this really tender time. What you're experiencing, again, I know is heartbreaking and heart wrenching, and yeah, I have been there. I know I'm sure a lot of your listeners have been there too, but boy, oh boy, the unconditional love that we feel from these animals is intense, and it's why we adore them so much. And when they get sick and having to make a decision about euthanasia, it is so heartbreaking. So I'm feeling for you.
I'm saying my wife came in, and she's here on the other side of the screen, but, it's like the both of us have been the caregivers. She has been really his main caregiver. And, we're talking about, something that is experienced by veterinarians, by people who are researchers, laboratory researchers, where they work with animals and in some cases have to do this. They have to perform euthanasia. And, but not only that, during the period of time leading up to that, they are pouring their souls out. They're pouring their hearts out. They're giving all of themselves. Like, I mean, I can't say enough about my wife, TT Tara, who's like literally been up for the last, really, I said last 2 days, heck with that. She's been up every day since last Friday when Max came home. I
Mhm.
mean, maybe the first night she had 15 minutes of sleep, then she'd get up, or 20 minutes of sleep, then she'd get up, 20 minutes of sleep, then she'd get up. In the last couple of days, last 2 nights in a row, I know she slept on the floor right beside Max, and she rubbed his stomach the entire time. And, he gets up for a second, he wants to go to his pad to go to the bathroom, and then, you know, she's taking him there, she's taking him back, she's getting him water, she's giving him pills, she does this. And I mean, like a lot of caregivers experience, there's fatigue and there's burnout. I think, and let me not give the impression that because of the burnout is the reason why we're making the decision that we're making tonight. This decision is being made because, it's like right now. I mean, she's holding him, like a baby, and he's not even moving, but he's breathing real hard. He's laboring with his breaths, and I, it, we can't feel what he feels inside. But, the mass is big enough that it's now gone into his spleen. I'm sorry, that was a word I missed earlier. It's gone into his spleen. It's gone into his liver. They can't really even see the kidney that it's wrapped around. And, I mean, he's got fluid in his abdomen, and we can feel that his abdomen is extended, and his back is a little bowed that it hasn't been bowed in his entire life. And, he cannot be feeling well. And so the decision that we're making this evening is to help him on his journey. I mean, I don't want him to labor here and be in pain so that we can look at him, while he's laying there sleeping. That's not what quality of life is that for him. But
Mhm.
maybe you could say a few things for my wife to, let her understand that, you know, fatigue and burnout from care. This has only been for 5 days that she's had to do this way, but still, there's fatigue right now in her.
Yeah.
I know it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, what you're experiencing, that is compassion fatigue. And what you're experiencing, what your wife is experiencing is the impact that we have on us when we are bearing witness to another's pain, struggle, and suffering. And yeah, in this conversation, we are talking about animals. In this conversation, we are talking about Max. But yeah, like that impacts us profoundly when we are repeatedly seeing that. That is impacting us in ways that sometimes we don't even realize. And it it's part of the cost. We call it the cost of caring. Yeah, like we signed up as pet owners to, in most cases, be able to see them through the end of their life, and we don't know when the end of their life is. For some animals, it's at age 2. For some, it's at age 13. For some, it's at age 15, like with Max. But eventually, when that end of life comes, and if it is through a disease condition, that then we see their deterioration, that hurts our heart. And the impact can be mental, it can be physical, it can be psychological, it can be spiritual. That is compassion fatigue.
And, I mean, you got involved in this, I think, was it because of your own struggles that inspired you to wanna help others?
I got involved in this because, I started working in veterinary medicine 30 years ago. And yeah, I had my own struggles. I didn't know what to do with all of the emotions that were around me every single day. The emotions of clients coming into a veterinary hospital, putting down their most precious friend, their child, their furry kid. Like, I didn't know what to do with all those emotions. And guess what? Veterinary professionals, those that do it every single day, and I know you had Dr. Daly on, but and they're feeling it too, right? And they have to be able to move from one euthanasia into, another exam room and talk to a puppy owner, but they're still feeling all those emotions. I didn't know what to do with them. I didn't have any tools to be able to deal with all of my emotions, which most of us don't. Most of us don't have tools to be able to handle our emotions. We're not taught any of these things. So I used alcohol, I used drugs, I had an eating disorder for 3 decades. It's like, I kept using all my coping mechanisms to try to ease my suffering, ease my pain, ease my heartache. And unfortunately, none of those things work. Well, they work temporarily, but those were never the solutions. The solution, unfortunately, is to feel what you're feeling right now, which is the pure, raw heartache. Like, that's the only way we get through this, is to actually feel it.
Right. And let us allow ourselves to feel it. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like, I know the two of us, both of us have been, almost crying incessantly for the last 2 days. And, I can't even talk about it. Even before we started this podcast, I'm having a hard time holding it together because, and I didn't think I would feel this way. But at the same time, you know, it's so weird. I don't know what we could say to people, make to help them understand that, when you're living your life with your pet and you're loving them to death, we got to know that their lives are not as long as ours. And but there's no way to prepare for that. I just
Right.
yeah,
Well, and here's what's so funny about that though, is like, believe it or not, like we all actually go into pet ownership, at least if we're talking about companion animals, we actually all go into it knowing there is going to come a day. We do know there's going to come a day where we have to say goodbye, but we do it anyways. The reason we do it anyways is because the love is so worth it. The love that you feel for him and from him is 10 times the heartbreak that you feel right now. It is. That's why we do it, because of the
mhm,
love. Yeah, and we're willing to pay the price of the loss, which I know in this moment sometimes when we're kind of in it, we're like, "Oh my gosh, what was I thinking?" But the love, it's all about the love that you have felt and still feel.
absolutely. I mean, yeah, and it's been incredible. I mean, you don't again. What's that old saying? You don't know what you lose until it's gone.
Yeah,
But you don't. While he's here, I mean, it's just it's he's been just such a integral part of our lives that I can't even imagine what my life's going to be like without him being a part of it. And I
Mhm.
think it's the same way that my wife feels. It's like, she wakes up every day and blesses the fact that he has been a part of us. And, he's been babied like a real baby. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. I mean, he has his own little deluxe little stroller, and he has beds in 3 different places in the room and in our place. And he's, though we stopped, feeding him things that I thought were bad for him. We were trying to make sure he kept him on a good, healthy regimen. But every now and then he gets his treats, and he loves his treats, and he would yelp and scream when the treats were there, and Eh, though at the time when he's yelping, so loud sometimes, I mean, Max could do a blood curdling scream that would literally, stop people in public because he sounded like there was one time that we were at my mother-in-law's house and he was running in the backyard screaming so loud that they called over and said, "Should we call the police or should we call emergency services? Is there somebody getting hurt? Because it sounds like a human." It's like, no, 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 that's just Max. That's how he communicates. But he's that kind of a guy, that kind of little doggy. And special to the point that again, I mean, we've traveled with him. He's like such the perfect traveler. He goes right under the seat in front of us, and then gets in. He loves whenever he gets to a new location, so he runs around and prances. And that's I'm saying things that people will say about their own pets, and I get it. But at the same time, and it's been a perfect joy to have them in our lives. And like you said, I mean, then for a couple thoughts, I was like, if I knew this was going to be this tough, would I have ever gone through this? Of course I would,
Mhm.
because I've appreciated every second of time we've had to share with them. But now it's as the clock ticks, and I know that later on in the day we're going to have to make this decision for him so he doesn't go through another light night like last night. What advice do you give us to think through even that moment? I know we're going to be able to go to the animal hospital and be able to hold him through his journey. But any advice for us for that period?
Yeah, I mean, it's this really it is it's the most selfless thing you can ever do. It is the act, it is it's the final gift you can give your pet when you are willing to help them relieve their suffering. And like, we don't have this with people. We don't have euthanasia. And if you've
Mhm.
ever been present for a euthanasia, you will see that it's the most beautiful experience. It is a literal just slipping away to, as you say, his next journey. It's beautiful. You get to make it what you want. You get to bring your love. You get to hold him and look in his eyes and tell him all those amazing things, and you get to hold the memories, and you get to bring things that are special to have around him. And he gets to be with you all, who he loves more than anyone. That is enough. That is more than enough. And what a gorgeous, beautiful way to send off someone you dearly love.
Right.
I can't think of a better way.
Now how do you feel? This whole idea of compassion fatigue has changed over the years because I think more and more people have, I guess back in the 50s and earlier than that, before people really started being vocally supportive of animal rights as much as human rights. You know, it's almost like it's opened up, opened up a door in the hearts of humans, to make us stop and think that, these animals do have feelings. I mean, I'm gonna crazy. I read an article a couple weeks ago where, in Europe now, I guess they have now are going to ban the live boiling of shellfish because we had the misinterpretation that shellfish didn't have the ability to feel pain, but now they've recognized that they do. And so, the that whole process of cooking a shellfish that way is going to now come to an end. And I never understood that. I'm a guy from the Maryland area, and they boil them and they steam crabs and they steam them live. And I never figured out what difference did it make if they were alive or they were dead. Why are you doing this to this live animal? And people would say that, well, they don't feel anything, but if you're staying in the kitchen when this is done, you hear noises coming out of that basket that are not normal.
Hmm.
And, so I mean, I think what's happened is man is finally starting to realize that, you know, all animal life and all life on this planet um, may have the ability to feel in ways that we never thought. The planet may even be feeling. I mean, look at what we're doing to this planet.
Hmm.
I've said it from, long before we jumped on, this, bandwagon of, save the planet because of global warming. I've always said to people that, what we got to remember is that what we are standing on is a living, breathing entity, this thing that we call Earth, whether we want to accept that or not. And all we are is, a bad skin rash, that or a pimple. And one of these days, this big living, breathing animal that or entity that we're standing on is going to pop us. And that's what mankind needs to understand is that it's not just a rock. This rock exists because it consumes energy, it consumes oxygen, it consumes the same things that we as human beings consume for life. Um, so, I mean, this whole representation of compassion fatigue has changed over the years because I think we're finally starting to wake up to the fact that we're not the only thing that feels. Do you
Right.
feel like companies are starting to become more aware of this issue and more willing to help their employees get through this? I mean, we went through the whole period of time where we've been trying to ban animal testing, though animal testing is still going on. Um, and I'm not sure if the companies and corporations that are doing that testing even spend the time trying to help their employees understand the way they feel about it. But do you think that's starting to happen now?
Oh, I certainly do. Without a doubt. Yes, that has been probably one of the biggest shifts is that the biotech, the bio research community really like compassion fatigue has become something that they are now talking about. And they didn't talk about it for a really long time because I think animal testing is super complicated. It's like it's a complicated issue because looking for cures and treatments and tools to be able to extend life, we still don't have models that are non-animal that work as well as some of the animal models work. So it becomes very challenging still. We're not at a place yet where animals aren't used in research. And, I think
Well,
everyone, yeah,
yeah, not that I'm not pleased. I'm not disagreeing with
yeah.
you, but I just want to throw out the point that, excuse me, we have hit a point now where we can do 1,000,000 to 2,000,000, computer generated um, tests, if you that will answer the questions in 5 minutes. You know what I mean? I mean, we can run scenarios by computer, and the computer AI is smart enough now that I think that man has reached that point where they could probably utilize AI as much as we're utilizing a rat or a mouse or a dog or a cat or whatever we're using in these animal testing.
Mhm.
I think that the science is there now to be able to stop this madness. I mean, that's just me saying it. And I know I work with and have worked with some of the top researchers on the planet from Harvard and other places that are working on, animal models when it comes to Alzheimer's or animal models when it comes to heart disease. And, yeah, I get it. I get it that, there's nothing like having that biological component. But I think that we've reached a point now, AI wise, where we can replicate that biological component in the computer. So at some point in time, we're going to have to figure out that, what, though we think the pig model or the dog model is easy enough to extrapolate over to human beings, maybe it's not.
Mhm.
And, when we look at the last 40 years we've been doing this, 50, 60 years that we've been doing this, we haven't come up with answers.
Mhm.
As much as we think we have, and in
Yeah.
some ways, yeah, some of the medication has crossed over, but the answers are still not there. So are we going down the wrong rabbit hole?
Right. Well, hey, I don't like it either. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't like using animals in research either. But like, look at what's happened even with, look what's happened even with the COVID vaccine. How many people are like, well, I don't want to be the guinea pig. Like, right? It's like, well, humans don't want to be the guinea pig. Was like, and those models do. And here's the one thing I'll tell you: like, it would make financial sense because using animals in research is outrageously expensive, outrageously expensive. So, from an economic standpoint, I have to believe that if that was possible, these companies would be saving, billions of dollars if that were actually true, if they could have these computer models that can do all those same things. That's not my area of expertise, so, I'm gonna gonna I'm gonna
Yeah,
pray
and,
to them,
it's
but
and I
yeah.
should say also to all of my other listeners that, it's not my area of expertise either. I've been, pretty critical of the biotech industry and, and what we call healthcare in America. I've been very, very critical of them, and, I think in some ways, some of it's laziness. I'm sorry. I
Mhm,
can't keep my mouth shut. I mean, it's lazy to be able to cut open a rat rather than, you know, push the limits of your computer,
mhm.
push the limits of the technology that you're pushing in all these other ways. So why are we being lazy when it comes to animals? Um, I think that we're going to find that again I go back to that idea of this planet being a living, breathing entity. You know, at some point in time, if you believe in a higher being, that higher being is going to say, that these are all my children. Not just you, human being.
Mhm.
All of them are my children. And how dare you think that you are better than them? I mean,
Yeah.
and at some point in time, I mean, because that's really what we're doing. We're basically saying that we're more important than this life. And yeah,
Well,
I love the idea that, something may have helped me live longer, but I'm not sure if the research that's been done on animals has been extrapolated over to humans in the way we think it is.
mhm. And here's what's actually funny about all of this is that when I first started doing the work that I do, serving, people who work with and for animals, I was not even thinking about animal research. I was thinking about veterinary medicine, animal welfare, because those were more my background. And I very quickly got approached by the animal research community to say, hey, would you be willing to work with our community? And the first question I got asked is, what do you think about using animals in research? And I stepped back because I was like, "What do I think about that?" And I realized I have my own thoughts and opinions on that, but I decided that my purpose here on the planet isn't about that's not my, cross to bear. That's not the mountain that I'm gonna die on. I decided that what I'm here to do is to support the people. If we're still using animals in research, then I need to help support them, those people that are doing that because they're giving of themselves each and every day, and I decided what I felt about that was sort of irrelevant. I'm gonna use my platform more to I wanna help support people who are in harm's way of compassion fatigue, right? Whether that is through research, whether that is through vet med, whether that is through animal welfare. I'm a vegan. Like I have support and as it relates to animal agriculture. Like I have my own thoughts about all that stuff. And it's sort of sometimes it becomes really challenging to separate the two. Like, wait a minute, what am I here to do? Am I here to, you know, express my opinion or am I here to support the humans that are in harm's way of compassion fatigue? So it's
Right.
complicated. Really is.
And you're doing an incredible job. I guess you do webinars and workshops and podcasts to help talk to people about self-care
Yeah.
and what they should be doing. And so let's talk a little bit about that. What are some of the examples of self-care and why is it making time for yourself as
Yeah.
important? I mean, I think like today, I would say to my doctor who helps us with Max this evening, I hope that, they have time to understand that they've done us all, not a favor, but they've done us all a blessing. And, I hope that they don't feel badly about what they've had to do for us.
Well, and that's what you will find out in talking with veterinarians. And I'll answer the question about self care. But interestingly enough, as it relates to veterinarians, euthanasia is not a huge source of compassion fatigue for them. If you ask veterinarians, most of the time they will say that they feel They feel good about being able to provide that service. Like, they're part of the veterinarian's oath is to relieve suffering. So that to them isn't really their source of compassion fatigue comes from perhaps as if it relates to euthanasia, it's more about euthanasia if a client can't afford the care that needs to be done or the surgery or there's other issues that are relating to euthanasia that don't have to do with illness
Right.
and as it relates to self-care, well, this also really is, for you and your family about what you will be going through. It's like the self-care is for you too. Self-care is about what do I need right now when my heart feels like it's broken, when I'm feeling grief and loss, or I'm feeling sadness, or I'm feeling emotionally taxed. If I'm feeling compassion fatigue, like what do I need to be doing for myself? I work with, the only people who get compassion fatigue, other than pet owners, of course, but people that work in helping professions. You defined your wife as many things, but one of the ways you defined her is as a caretaker, at least for Max right now. So she's giving of herself to help another being in this situation, Max, right? So anyone who's in a helping profession or in helping service is susceptible to compassion fatigue, and it's not innate for them to also refill and rejuvenate themselves. That doesn't come naturally to them. They want to give their goodness, their love, their kindness, and their care and compassion to others. And it's not intuitive to do the same thing for themselves. So self care ultimately is, yeah, what do I need to fill myself up after I'm pouring myself out every single day? How do I do that? Is it, and there's a million different ways for self care. It
Sure,
could be
absolutely.
yeah, could be through the physical, could be through nutrition, could be through reading and relaxing, could be through music, listening to podcasts, could be through meditation, could be through, journaling, art, so many different aspects, and really it does become an individual thing, like, yeah, what works for me?
Right. And I know for her over the next couple of days, she's going to have to do something to recharge and keep herself from falling, into the abyss because it's been her 24-hour a day
Yeah,
job to take care of Max and to be with him and though I'm with him a lot and I take him out and walk him out I do things with him but she has been really his sole provider in a sense in some ways, so, I'm going to try to make sure I talk to her about, just taking deep breaths and, doing a couple things over the next couple of days to help her get back out of this. But I know that in the last through a couple hours today and last night, we talked through this quite a bit. And both of us feel very strongly that we're doing the right thing for him because, um, I just, he can't. She woke up this morning and said, I'm not going to let him go through another night like that. I
mhm,
mean, his nights have been so bad for him that, how dare we force him to do it again for us? So, um, but let's talk a little bit more about how important it is for, caregivers. We have been talking about pets quite a bit, but I guess, we could translate this into what's been happening. Again, now we're on the rise of, this pandemic that humankind
mhm.
is going through with COVID. Where, there, I think we've now crossed the 1,500 a day mark again with patients going back into hospitals. We're crossed 1,000 a day with people passing in the hospital. I mean, this is another example of compassion, burnout, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, like, what the medical profession is dealing with right
Mhm.
now, I mean, I can't even imagine what it's like to be a doctor or a nurse, and especially and I guess it's still the same, it's like to be the only person that is then present when someone is, either they'll dying in the COVID ward. I mean,
Right,
and how do you just right? How do you just leave that at work? You don't, you bring it home with you.
right, and especially if that happens every single day, which
Yeah,
is happening every day.
right. Yes. And I mean, it's insurmountable to even think about what these amazing people have been dealing with the past 20 some months. I mean, it really is unbelievable to think about. Because
But
yeah,
you know what? That's one of those things which it's unbelievable to think about, but it's something that our society has to face and face head on because this compassion burnout.
Yeah.
is forcing some to leave the profession early. We're having, some of these professionals who are aging out.
Yeah.
Um, Naturally, they would have retired this year anyway, and we're gonna have a void. I remember even before COVID, reading some information from, the National, Nurses Society that, by 2022, we were already gonna be about 500,000 nurses in America short.
Right.
And that's just because, we got so many kids wanting to be internet stars rather than get into, care. And so now when you exacerbate that with what's happened for the last 2 years and people are now running out of profession because they don't feel respected at all. Um, and I say that in multiple ways. I mean, we look at our society and we're in a society that how dare we fight over ways to help protect our fellow man? But we're fighting over that. We're
Mhm.
fighting. We got people who are trying to deny the fact that COVID even exists. Stop! I just don't know how crazy this could be. And some of those same deniers are the ones who are dying like flies.
Yeah.
Stop.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
know.
and so at some point, I was talking to a friend a couple of days back and thinking about, what we don't understand and won't even take the time to think about is that there was a time on this planet when almost half of the population on the planet died because of a plague. And, now our numbers are so staggeringly high when it comes to COVID deaths. We already know that in America alone, there have been more deaths due to COVID than all of our wars combined. Yet people still flippantly throw that out and don't recognize the fact that for every one of those deaths, there was somebody who was compassionately a part of one of those lives that's now had to bear the burden of that loss
Yeah.
and will do so not even understanding in some reasons why there is a loss.
Right.
So, and that goes on and on and on and on and on for years. And how we deal with that, I just, as a counselor and as a person who works with that kind of fatigue, I mean, there are going to be people who are going to be fatigued from the loss that they experienced last year, 2 years from now.
Mhm.
What do we say to them?
This is a yeah, what do we say to them? Because it feels like the one thing that we are saying to them by denying that there's a virus out there, that by denying how we can all be part of the solution versus the problem, if we don't embrace being part of the solution, it's sort of like giving the middle finger to the healthcare community, being like, "Yeah, we don't care about we don't care about you and what you're dealing with. We don't care that you had to sit bedside by bedside by bedside by bedside and watch people die that their families couldn't be around them." Like, I have a hard time. I can't make sense of that in my brain. I
I
don't know
can't.
what to
Let
tell
me
them.
tell you,
Yeah,
I can't make sense of that at all to me because those same people that are deniers are going to be the first ones to run into a hospital and demand help
right,
from somebody when they get sick.
right.
And we noticed, and I'm not picking on any individuals, but there's been groups of people who have been publicly, vocally denying this, and they are passing like flies.
Yeah,
Some of them,
yeah,
who have taken their pulpit to step up and tell people, "Oh no, there's no such thing as set the fire," and then they're the ones who pass away.
mhm,
And
yeah,
the people that they said that to don't get the message. I don't understand this. It's like,
right,
what do I feel like, in some ways we're living in a science fiction world here, and don't know how we get out of it.
right.
But it's like, mankind has evolved to a point that evolution has stopped. I feel. It's like, we keep evolving into this what we thought was going to be a smarter being, and yet we're now devolving into stupidity.
Mhm. Yeah.
Which I just can't quite get. I'm gonna run out of time, but before I do it, let's talk a little bit about this 50/50 philosophy that you have and how that relates to compassion fatigue.
Yeah, the 50-50 philosophy is, first of all, it's a philosophy about life. And the 50-50 is that life is 50-50, which means that half of the time our lives are amazing and great and we feel all the positive feels, right? We feel all the positive emotions. And then half of our life is downright awful, and we feel all the negative emotions. We feel frustrated and angry and stressed and overwhelmed. And like that's a real human life because just as we're discussing right here, there's we don't have to look very far to see things in the world that we don't, first of all, feel good about. We don't feel joyful about. We don't feel happy about, as we were just discussing. So, as that relates to compassion fatigue, it's sort of like our work is that way too. It's like half of it is super heart heavy. That's the compassion fatigue, the burnout, the moral stress. And half of it is amazing. That's what we call compassion satisfaction. That's the pleasure we derive from the work. Because anyone who's in a helping role, even your wife, like she derives pleasure from helping Max, right? It's like it's equally heart heavy, but it equally feels good to be a caretaker to him. So that in that way, like that's that piece of the antidote, if you will, to compassion fatigue is how often do we step into the good parts about it? Are we dwelling in the goodness? Are we looking for the things that we're grateful for, that we appreciate?
Well, you know what? We only have a couple minutes left. Maybe that's something you could just talk a little bit more about and send a message out to those who are in the fields of compassion and care, whether it be animal compassion or human compassion. I mean, that whole idea of looking at the glass half full is probably is 10 times better than half empty, and understanding that you should take joy in knowing what you've been able to do to assist, no matter it be an animal or a person or a human being. Like you brought up my wife. I mean, I didn't mention to you, like, I had a stroke about 4 years ago, and it put me in the hospital for almost 30 days. My wife slept in the hospital on a cot beside me for the entire time, being my advocate and also ensuring that I took her medication and doing the things I needed to do. She was the only reason why I think I survived that. Had she not been there, I don't think I'd be here today. And she's now doing the same thing for Max. I mean, it's like she was there. She's there. She understood it's part of her soul to be a nurturer and a giver, and Nurse Nightingale. And I mean, I think for some, and I think at the end of the day, I'm going to talk to her a little bit about appreciating the fact that that's part of her soul, because that's what really helps to fill her up.
Mm,
But maybe we should talk a little bit to those and send a message out to those people who are listening in today, who work in fields and just need that boost.
yeah. Oh my gosh. And the fields are so like we could never cover all the fields, but of course it's the animal fields that we've already mentioned. It's the human health care, it's the teachers, it's the mental health providers, it's the child care advocates, et cetera, et cetera. And all of those people who give, and we have so many of us have a kind and caring and good heart, right? There's so many people on our planet that get up every day wanting to make a difference, wanting to make the world a better place and give from their soul, give from their heart and love on others, right? In all the ways that they do. Yeah. So my message to them all is, hey, guess what? Don't forget to include yourself in that equation. Don't forget to love on yourself, care on yourself, fulfill the needs of yourself, because there is no way you can be sustainable in all the work that you do when you also don't recharge yourself. And you have to give yourself permission to do so. You have to really, this is like almost like a narrative of like, you know what? It's important for me to make sure that I'm also putting myself into the equation for the day of all that I'm taking care of, all the plates that I have spinning, all that I'm caring for. Yeah, where's a little space for myself? And it's not
Absolutely.
selfish. It's the exact opposite of selfish. It's
And they need to
necessary.
understand
Yeah.
that. Well, look, I guess,
Yes.
Julie, we're out of time for today, but I would love to have you back at another time because there's so many things we haven't discussed, and I wanted to talk to you about, like the perma, philosophy and things like that. So, could you maybe schedule us? We'll reschedule and have you back again.
Absolutely. I would love to.
Yeah, I would love to have a carry on a conversation and continue on, and maybe help you or at least share with you how we've transitioned and gotten through.
Mm.
And I can't say thank you enough for your kind words today for our family. It meant a lot to both of us. My wife is giving you the thank you so much off screen, but it meant so much to us both. Thank you.
Well, I'm holding your entire family in my heart today. I for sure am, and I'm here supporting you from afar.
Thank you so much. Look, you have a great day. You stay safe. You stay well. Keep doing what you're doing. We need people like you every day. And so, and again, you always have a home here at Free Thinking with Montel, and we're going to reach out to you and see if we can get you back. Okay?
Thanks so much, Montel.
Yes, ma'am. Have a great day.
You too.
And make sure you tune in to the next Free Thinking with Montel. Thanks for joining me on Free Thinking with Montel. Please make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell to be notified when new episodes post each week. We'd love to hear feedback, so please send us your comments.